Thanks a lot, Radhi, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. As we have a power-packed agenda, I'll delve right in. So, Devika, let's start with you. We know there can be certain limitations in any automation program at any enterprise. So, what are your thoughts on some of these limitations in the current AI ML models? And how do you think it is affecting the scalability and reliability of automations in any large scale enterprise setting?
So ideally, I mean, like in my world, I always feel that AI and machine learning models do impact scalability and reliability overall. Not that they are not reliable, but there can be, issues. So a couple of them that I have personally seen are data dependency and quality of data, because AI and ML models heavily rely on data at the end of the day. Then it could also be resources, what kind of resources you have. Some advanced AI models particularly might have dependency or resource. Other than lack of contextual understanding, in what context are we talking. So these are a couple of them, and one of the major ones that I have seen are security, security related. Yeah.
Great. Those are some great inputs. And Doug, what do you think about the different ways generative AI is the buzzword of the town? So, how do you think, and what are the different ways in which generative AI is enhancing the capabilities of some of the traditional automation systems in any enterprise?
Yeah, so some of the same points as Davika is that generative AI is making some changes. It's not handling, so like enterprise automation has already been in the enterprise space, right? And so when you come into bringing GenAI in and trying to find out where that solution is, where it can be brought in, what's the best way to bring that in, you still have to do the same kind of song and dance you do with enterprise automation. Say like, how do we govern it? What does it look like? We know that we hear about GenAI having hallucinations. It's actually part of the way it's built. We need to understand it is part of it, but kind of the same on the same talk around the ML models and whatnot. The hallucinations are all about grounding. So if you take your data and you take that data and you ground that data and you put it into either like Azure Data Blobs, or you drive it to where you understand and get the fine tuning of that, you're going to have less hallucinations. But I think the biggest thing people need to also be concerned about is the fact that GenAI has the ability to be hypnotized, right? So you can do prompt injections, and not only your own end users can do prompt injections, but also clients on the outside that may have access to your LLMs or your GenAI have this ability. And so there's a lot of concerns there and a lot of governance that needs to come into play. And also to Davika's point is like, understand what is the project ahead of time. Use tools like Silkflow or something that is driving your OKRs, your KPIs. That's really seeing where the business value is coming from and what you're driving to, because the more you understand what that looks like, the more you're going to be able to drive to an actual solution example.
Yeah, totally. I think agree to it. Now, continuing the thought, Doug. So, in terms of the KPIs, right? So, can you share some examples where generative AI has significantly improved KPIs like efficiency, creativity, or even problem solving in some of your business processes?
Yeah, so companies that are using, some companies that follow KPIs and OKRs, when you're trying to drive to that overall business OKR, a lot of the times users and employees don't always have the right words, and they don't have always the right understanding of what some of those are. And so using generative AI gives, as like an assistant, right, gives people examples and the ability to drive understanding around what they're trying to deliver on. And so when you're looking to say, I want to build a KPI, here's what my team does, here's our primer, here's our solutioning, here's what we engage and how we engage, and really what projects we're working on for this year that have already been set up by our stakeholders. That's where you get some of those key interactions that if you don't have the right words, maybe we all come from different backgrounds, we come from different locations, and the one thing that is the commonality that we all have is that we work for different companies or the same company, but each company has its own culture and its own. So if we can understand that, utilize that, bring in LLMs or GenAI to help us ask the right questions or help us to guide us on what is a good KPI that aligns with that overall OKR that we have an understanding that the business needs, then we'll all be on the same page.
Yeah, that's true. And Devika, what are your thoughts on Gen AI? Like, how is it solving and contributing more of the complex problems than what conventional automated automation tools were generally struggling with? And any examples, if you might want to share from your recent experience?
So I think Doug hit the nail at the right spot. So the biggest one is content generation and creativity, and you would see that as mentioned, people are coming from different spheres of life, and when you are in a tech space or any particular industry, you try to use similar language or similar ways of communication, right? And that's where content generation comes into picture, and generative AI is actually doing really well in that space. And from a recent example that we did a POC on here at Mongo. Basically, we ran a competition across Mongo. It's called hackathon, and what we did in that hackathon was that how we can use generative AI tools to build interesting things. And one of the projects that was very interesting was about that not everybody understands how to write SQL, but if we can have just a simple statement which says that, okay, can I get the top 10 performing teams in this company, and it can automatically write a SQL for you. And that just completely changed the ball game, the way the output it was producing. And currently, we are actually working to enhance the capacity and the capability of this product so that we can use it internally within Mongo.
That's good to know. And I think you were also, both of you were talking about some of the enablers with generative AI technology. So we may categorize all of these enablers into data, platform, or employee skills. So, Doug, what do you think? What role does interdisciplinary collaboration play in advancing generative AI kind of solutions? So, examples can be between computer science, ethics, or even domain specific knowledge of a specific industry. So, how do you think these interdisciplinary collaborations are advancing generative AI kind of solutions?
I think overall, like generative AI is a growing space. There's still a lot of hype in it because there's a lot of stuff that's not understood. I think there was actually a video out that Cadbury put out, and it was very funny. So Cadbury, the chocolate company, puts out this video, and it has a gentleman going through a library, and he picks up like a data science book, and then on the news it says, "Oh hey, AI just created a data science LLM." So then he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna put that back. I'm not gonna learn that." And then he goes and grabs another book called like analytics today. It's like, oh, and then another AI has been created for analytics. It's like, oh man, like what do you do, right? And so the same aspect, right, is how are we driving that? What are we doing? And really, some people say, the people that are using AI and working with AI are going to be the ones that win and move forward. A lot of people are worried about jobs and whatnot. The biggest thing that I say when I'm talking about Gen AI and when I'm talking about the automation enterprise and or even the autonomous enterprise and where things are going to be is it's a matter of like, it's not fire, it's don't hire. And so essentially what we're saying is we're flipping the script and saying, instead of hiring tens of thousands of developers on and then trying them out and like Microsoft and Google and like laying them off after 6 or 9 months, then why don't we look at it as the fact that like businesses are going to grow at a steady rate anyway. So why aren't we looking at like, since there's always more work, let's build that Gen AI to support those automation efforts, to support those users in those different realms, and say, how do we do it together? Because overall, you're just taking a little bit of the work off of them, and they become the expert in that. And so by doing so, you're enabling them and you're incentivizing them to actually automate or to build different autonomous ways to work with Gen AI to drive these same areas of business so that overall the business wins. It goes back to that KPI OKR, right? So what KPIs am I doing to automate, to build in Gen AI, to solutionize and work with the right teams? Do I have a COE, like a center of enablement that I'm working with, or a center of excellence that I'm working with? If I am, I want to, be very good friends with those people because I want to make sure I'm driving to those same overall goals and building digital assistants and building things that are going to help me and my organization to overall hit that business need. And so I think that's the more general conversation that kind of needs to happen, is understanding as individuals in these groups, where are we going? How does that look?
That's interesting. Yeah, definitely. And Devika, what do you think about the importance of the infrastructure and computing resources in the development and deployment of Gen AI technologies? We've already touched on the data as an enabler. So, what do you think about infrastructure and computing resources?
I mean, obviously, infrastructure, is the backbone of any technology enablement that you can think of. And I think, when we talk about generative AI, data storage comes into picture. Inference and real-time processing comes into picture. Training models is very important. That you're learning as you're expanding your capabilities. Scalability comes into picture. I also think, to some extent, specialized hardware would come into conversations very soon. Uh, Parallel computing is an interesting area where I think that would also start playing an important role eventually.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing those insights. Now, I also want to touch on the concerns also on any new emerging technology. So, with generative AI, parallel computing, and even advanced AI ML, there are many ethical considerations also which are coming into play. Now, if Doug, we start with you, and we were talking about content generation also as one of the use case for such a technology. So, how do you think an intellectual property rights of maybe these content creators or even our scientists, for that matter, be protected in this era of AI, ML, and advanced generative AI?
That's a hard one, right? So, I mean, we're seeing that with some of the artistry. We're seeing that with, Hollywood, and even some of the other movie locations all around the world are saying, if we can use AI and Gen AI to drive background actors, then we no longer need background actors. We can just have the same kind of thing. Or what if we change it in a way to where it has new ownership, to where, what if I can use VR or AR, augmented reality, to where I'm in the movie as myself and I'm playing Tom Cruise or something, right? Having that ability doesn't make it mine then. No, it makes it whoever created it. And so I think the creation economy is going to change over time. But again, to your point, when we talk about AI, Gen AI, and that next step, what is that next step? The next step that everybody's looking at is potentially AGI, right? Artificial general intelligence, where if that comes to be, that's creating its own data sets. So then who controls it, right? And this is definitely something that has to be talked about at a much higher level, and something we all have to agree upon. It's nothing that I, as a person, can say, hey, this is the right way. I do try to provide perspective and insights into things that I do believe. I think the biggest thing that we need is a more governance-driven understanding of how we work with these AI components and these Gen AI and the future of that. I think there is a way to build in an autonomous agent mechanism that works with current existing mechanisms. So to where the idea essentially, or that I'm trying to get to the point is, the one point I made on social media recently was when we go about and you look at the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? And you have these super intelligence that they go ask the question to, and they say, what is the meaning of life? And it says 42. Nobody knows what that means, right? But how, if we allow everything to go the route it's going, we are building kind of black boxes. We're seeing these black boxes. And we want to avoid these, especially when we're talking to enterprises. We don't want black boxes. We want to be able to control our own data sets. We want to be able to understand our own data sets. That's why we talk about ML and NLP. But in the consumer side, in the very public side, it's still very black box. How do we know what it's doing? And how are we going to learn from what it's doing? When it becomes smarter or more smarter than it is now, how do we know how it got to that 42 as an answer? And that's where we need governance. And I think there's a lot of ability there. I've written some of this up myself to say, like, maybe we need to treat it, if we're training AI on our own brain sets and how we handle things. I myself, like both of you and everybody watching, we all have an id, ego, and super ego that we evaluate what we're going to say off of what our input and output is going to be. If we have autonomous agents driving that same kind of mindset, when I prompt something or I ask an AI something, I would love to see it go through some kind of triage of, here's what I understand. Did I get the right question? If I'm going to answer this, am I answering in the right way that makes sense to this user with this person's background, with this person's permissions or roles? That would be great, because then if we can see that tree of thought, then we can understand, oh, I know how it got to 42. And that's the key. And I think that's something that not many people are talking about, but I would love to hear more about and love to even have that conversation with more people. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally resonate with that thought because I think visibility into the whole model and how it is coming up with that solution, I think, is something which is missing, and it's not even transparent. So totally agree to that. And Devika, what do you think on the implications with this advanced intelligent automation and advanced AI? Do you think of it as an enabler or a replacer for employment and future of work, or a combination?
It is a combination of both. I mean, obviously, whenever new technologies or anything new comes into the market, it's always, people first start pointing fingers, because adoption takes time. And it's always like, you would always see that people are torn into two groups. One are the pros, and one are basically finding cons. It's always the case. And if we look at implications here, there are definitely opportunities and there are challenges. Some of the opportunities that I personally see are efficiency, productivity. There are so many people who are doing very repetitive work day in and day out. Can we, take that off their plates, and can they do something more meaningful? Can we alleviate their success rate? Some people spend their entire life doing similar jobs, right? Or it could be creating new roles and new industries, even, like specialized areas, niche areas, and also innovation, creativity. Again, with GenAI, there's some creativity involved in it. It's not like that it's magic. Then there's personalization and customer experience. At the end of the day, if I'm getting a good customer experience out of Gen AI, you are seeing some benefits out of it. So those are a couple of opportunities that I think are definitely worth considering. When it comes to challenges, I know, a couple of years ago when automations came into picture, then slowly Gen AI and so many other things are coming, people talk about job displacement as one of the biggest threats. And as Doug had mentioned, it has to be a fine balance of both. It cannot be that, oh, we will take out entire human population and we would place bots and we'll put AI in place and everything would be done automatically. But it has to be a fine balance of both. And that's where we have to understand where that fine balance comes into place, where there are repetitive jobs, repetitive things where we can, put AI into place, and where there are more creativity required, we can use human brain along with AI. Skill shifting is also another challenge that I see. People start feeling that, oh, my job is under threat, so maybe I need to shift skills. So you would always see, that there's skill shifting happening. One of the biggest challenge that especially around the news channels that we are hearing is around ethical considerations, right? People are superimposing images, people are putting verbiage that is not there. All the kind of things are happening around. So I feel to some extent ethical consideration is very important when AI comes into picture. um, I also think that unequal access to opportunities, can also bridge the gap here. You know, so those are a couple of
Yeah.
things, and I think eventually you would see that the impact would happen on very traditional industries. I mean, technology is one that adopts things quickly, but there are traditional industries where you will see that the adoption rate would eventually uh, grow.
True to that, and I think most of our audience would also be able to relate to this thought. So I know we are at the top of the time, so I would like to again thank my panelists for sharing all of these great insights with us today, and hope our audience was also able to get a good amount of information from them. Over to you, Rati.